it's actually not from the manifesto, but I would like to know, and yes, I'm will answer to, should any bed and breakfast owner in the whole of the UK have a right to decline same-sex staff a right to double bed in their establishment?
Belinda?
I can't imagine how it was that that was said, because that doesn't reflect my views, it doesn't reflect anybody else's views that I've met in the Conservative Party. I abhor discrimination of any sort at all, and I think it's extraordinary that that should have been said. I think that the person concerned afterwards was very concerned about the impact of his remarks, and I gather that he supported civil partnerships, and there was other legislation that he supported. It would seem that that was, to quote Hillary Clinton, perhaps a misspoke. I don't really understand the context in which that came out, because it just seems odd to me. And I'd like to emphasise that that has nothing to do with the Conservative Party's diet.
Belinda, I don't know if you just noticed yesterday in Scotsman there was a bit of a polling done on whether or not voters believed parties. And in fact, nobody came out of that very well, except the old Lib Dems. But the Conservatives were hugely not believed. In fact, only 17% of people sampled believed the Tories would deliver on the policies that they promised. I guess it's these kind of things that worry people, that actually there's a big closet Thatcherite party in there that occasionally makes a mistake and reveals itself. And people aren't sure which is the Conservative Party, the nice David Cameron, sort of sensible people, or the kind of weirdo people.
You know, it frustrates me because I think the Conservatives have done more revolutionary work thinking about social inclusion. Ian Duncan-Smith has been magnificent in the kind of evidence he's brought to bear, the evidence-based papers that he's been pulling on, he's been getting experts from different professional groups to be getting together to really get to grips with these really difficult problems in society. And that doesn't seem to be coming through in terms of what people believe. I don't quite know the survey that you referred to. I also know of other surveys that, for instance, after the televised debate, regarded David Cameron as being the person who was going to have as Prime Minister, or the person that it could most to see as being the next Prime Minister. So, you know, a lot of these surveys are contradictory.
I think that
was in the Sun. So,
well then.
I mean, it's another newspaper, it's another survey, and that's my point. You know, they are at times random.
Right. Would you like to hand the microphone on?
No, is the answer to the question. You wanted a single answer, can I give you more than an extra few words? It's abominable that in this day and age people still discriminate openly against people based on ignorance and probably hatred. And it's symptomatic really of the fact that society has moved over the last 30, 40 years, but nothing like as much as we probably think it has. I think with discrimination of any type, we sometimes get complacent because we don't see it as much as we used to in the old days. Certainly from our generation, or one further generation down the line, where we have moved some way, but it is still prevalent. And that is just really one at the tip of the iceberg that shows what's happening all the time, but not being talked about. So I made the remarks last Sunday that the most important thing to me in a B&B is the breakfast and the comfiness of the bed, not losing the room next door. And if I was a business owner in that B&B, why would I turn away a good paying client? Unfortunately, these things happen, and the hard thing about legislating towards is making a law against it doesn't unfortunately stop it. We have to follow through on those actions by prosecuting people for being of that mindset and of discriminating against people, and indeed making sure that we have that open discussion about why it's the wrong thing to do, by stopping somebody who's in a partnership. And a civil partnership to me still says there's a difference between a same-sex marriage and a different-sex marriage. I support marriage of anybody if they want to be married. Sanctity of marriage is important to me. I'm married, but that's because I love the person and they love me. It shouldn't matter what colour skin is or what gender we are, what persuasion we have, be it political or otherwise. So,
Sandy, what legislation would you prosecute someone under?
It is effectively a human rights issue.
So we consult a lawyer?
No, that's the last thing you do when you come to legislation. Effectively, it's a human rights issue. If you are unable to assemble in a place, unable to express the way that you feel and the way that you are, then that is effectively stopping you from expressing your individual human rights. So I would, if that isn't good enough, then we should get the advocates to stop having third place victories and actually have some legislation that enables us to prosecute these people.
So you want us to be able to prosecute somebody who refuses someone a service or good on the grounds of their sexuality?
Absolutely.
Right, let's just get quickly the old legal view on that.
Well, I mean, Sheila will always correct me if I get this wrong. But firstly, no. Secondly, we have to stop brushing under the carpet unstated discrimination. And the beauty of the idea that we have equality of access to services, particularly services provided in the public sphere, is that it stops people saying, if we go back to 30 years, putting up a sign saying no Irish. By making it in terms of human rights application, not prosecuting a civil right to be able to have a service provided to you, irrespective of your gender, your race, your sexual orientation, it then becomes harder for people to use subtext of to discriminate. That's why the first stage of the abolition of Clause 2A, Clause 28, which of course most of the Tory MPs, including David Cameron, voted to keep. And that was the first thing. So you remove an act and a real discrimination. The next stage is to provide a remedy, but it's a civil remedy, it's not prosecution. I don't really see that prosecuting people for not allowing same-sex couples to stay at Airbnbs is going to do much more than create martyrs. But allowing them to sue them if they don't get the right to support what the right is, I think it's a very good idea, because then you effectively force business owners to operate in a non-discriminatory way, and that's the way to do it. The next stage, of course, it will be about education, and therefore I think if we can mention same-sex marriage, the Liberal Democrats in Scotland, we've made a party policy to allow marriage to be available to any combination of genders, as it were, including those people who are currently going through gender reassignment treatment, because we think marriage is an important thing that the state should recognise, and it doesn't really matter what gender people are involved in, as long as they love each other and are prepared to commit. And that's the next stage beyond that. And as we continue to build these steps up, some people will find it hard, but if we're going to get away from the periods 30, 40 years ago, when everything was unstated, and people were, what's the American expression, don't talk,